Good morning, staff, and good morning, Wichita. We will call this meeting to order. Ms. Clerk, can you please call, actually before that, we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Ms. Clerk, can you please call the first item?
Approve the minutes of the regular meeting, June 17th, 2025.
Are there any changes to the minutes for the regular meeting, June 17th? I see none. I move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting for June 17th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Ms. Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Public agenda. The public agenda allows for up to 5 speakers to have 5 minutes each to address the council. No action will be taken relative to items on the public agenda other than the referral to the city manager for information as necessary. Speakers will please state their name and address for the record. A time clock will display the speaker's remaining time to speak. Order and rules of decorum will be observed.
Are there any individuals from the audience who would like to speak? I see none. Ms. Clerk, please call the next item.
Consent agenda items 1 through 16.
Are there items to be pulled?
Yes. I'd like to pull item 12, please.
I'd like to pull item 10, please.
10. What did you say?
10.
10.
And I would like to pull item 13. So we have 10, 12, and 13. Any other items to be pulled? I see none. I move to approve consent agendas items without 10, 12, and 13.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. We'll go in numerical order. We'll start with item number 10.
Yeah, I just pulled for a little additional information.
Thank you, Councilmember. Good morning, Captain Aaron Moses from the Wichita Police Department for the record. Happy to discuss the FY25 COP School Violence Prevention Program grant application. We are seeking permission to apply for grant funding up to $500,000 over 36 months with a 25% match to purchase a school safety and public notification technology. So as we're looking to implement our real-time information center here soon, we're looking at ways to elevate that technology and collaborate with local groups, specifically the school district. Recently we had the town hall with the school district, the county, and the city, and one thing we heard from the community was they really want to see us coordinate and collaborate with the school district. So Chief Sullivan met with the superintendent of Wichita Public Schools, and we came up with a plan to collaborate and apply for grant funding for this technology. Our goal would be to outfit at least all secondary schools in Wichita Public Schools to start with, but we are very confident that we'll be able to use this funding to outfit all attendance centers, all 93 attendance centers in Wichita Public Schools with this technology. What we're looking for, this is something we've heard in conversation with the school district, is the ability for teachers to have some direct notification on their person, whether it's on their cell phone or a physical button that they can press that would alert us to an emergency within a school. The way this would tie into the real-time information center is we would also include the floor plans for the schools into that, so that if we got a notification from a school, we would know exactly where that notification came from and where exactly the emergency was occurring. And it would allow for quicker notification for us to respond to that school in the event of an emergency. Like I said, the funding is up to $500,000 over 36 months. with a 25% match. So to the city, it would be a maximum of $42,000 annually, which we would cover out of the real-time information center operating budget. So we're asking for permission from the council today to apply. The initial application was due last week. The city manager provided us a waiver to submit that application last week. The final application is due this week, so we're seeking your permission to submit that application, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Does the school district share any of this cost, or is this strictly for on our end?
For this grant application, no, and that's because the school district is separately applying for a different program for the same grant funds. So that's the collaborative approach we took, is we recognize need in two different areas, both through technology and then physical infrastructure. So the school district is applying separately for the same FY25 COP School Violence Prevention Program grant, but for infrastructure for the schools. So they have their own match, 25% match that they would have to be obligated to support.
All right, thank you, Captain, appreciate it.
Captain Moses, thank you again. We did have that meeting early this month regarding city, county, and USD 259, so I'm appreciative that Chief Sullivan, as well as Superintendent Bielefeld, decided to do something that was collaborative. And in this case, again, as you mentioned, USD 259 will focus more on infrastructure, whereas the city and police will focus on technology. And I think that that's how we can start looking at grants. How can we best, not just by ourselves as one government system, look at grants, but rather how can we collaboratively look at grants between city, county, and USD 259, or in this case, city and USD 259. So thank you very much. Any further questions? I see none. We'll now open it up for public comment. I see none. We'll bring it back.
Well, yep, I'll go ahead and I will make the motion to approve the grant application.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. We will now go to consent agenda item number 12.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Sally Stang with the Housing and Community Services Department for the record.
I'm sorry. Sally, could you just give us a little update on this, please? Just maybe review what the status report is and just fill us in.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we have been providing to you a status update on the consent agenda for the disposition of the public housing properties, as well as the as HUD calls the FARS update. In our discussion on June 13th with HUD, we have a monthly call. They asked that the report that I provide you in writing, that be brought up orally in the meeting. So because that was so close to this meeting, I couldn't get it on a regular agenda. So I will provide you an update. And from this date forward, you'll see this item as a regular new business item once a month for the rest of the year. So to date, we're very excited. We've sold 173 of the homes that we had permission to sell, up to 215, with 28 still just waiting for either closing dates or HUD to issue the release of trust on those properties. And even more exciting is Friday, we received the approval of the fifth and final application, which now grants us permission to move forward with disposition of all of the remaining properties. So we are starting to do an evaluation of those properties to determine in what order those will get released. We're very cautiously turning those over to the broker, so not to affect the local housing market, and doing that with purpose, for sure. Of the 173 that have sold, 38 to date have sold directly to individuals for homeownership. 4 of those to public housing residents, which we're so happy about. Another 47 have been sold to our nonprofit partners that are working to renovate those properties and then turn them over for affordable home ownership in the future. So we're very excited that this is moving, and finally moving in some ways. And I stand for any questions you have.
I just have one question. For anyone who's watching this meeting right now, where can they get more information about the properties that are for sale?
Absolutely. The properties for sale are listed on our website, and we'll also connect to our broker at Home Real Estate, who has been phenomenal. And once we turn units over to them, we are generally getting offers within days. So they are flying off the market.
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. I appreciate it.
I see no further questions for staff. We'll open it up for public comment. I see none. We'll bring it back.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. I appreciate your time and all of your efforts that you and your team do. With that, I move that the Wichita Housing Authority Board receive and file the HUD Recovery Agreement Status Update and the Public Housing Disposition Update Report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Sally, you can stay up there since this one also applies to you. This is consent agenda item number 13. This in particular is regarding individuals facing homelessness. Can you talk about this new role, the peer recovery specialist, and how you're going to recruit this individual and how that will play in conjunction with the WPD's homeless outreach team?
Yes, so the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation issued an application process for what they call discretionary CSBG funds. So this is funds that they've made available not just to CSBG current grantees, but across the state. And they were looking for innovative projects that address the goals of CSBG, which is tackling homelessness, poverty, those sort of things. As we move forward with the Wichita Unsheltered Resource Coordinator position and the housing specialist that works within that team, working hand in hand with Wichita Police Department, the HOT team, as well as the continuum of care agencies going into encampments and trying to identify individual person's needs and connect them to housing. We saw an innovative opportunity to partner with the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas as a subrecipient in this grant, so we would actually be moving in for this together, for them to embed what they call a peer support specialist. This is a person who has lived experience either in homelessness, mental health, or substance abuse, or any mix of the three, and can work alongside with the resource coordinator and the housing specialist to try and engage persons living in encampments. And we see this as a new and innovative way to address the needs of people who are unsheltered at this time.
Sally, so if I'm getting this correctly, this peer recovery specialist will work with an individual who specializes in housing, unsheltered resource coordinator, the homeless outreach team, and the COC together to help individuals facing homelessness.
Correct.
We've been getting a lot of questions regarding homelessness in our community, and with this coordinated effort, how fast do you see this actually impacting community as, again, it has become a major topic, especially during the summer months?
Sure. So this is just another tool in our toolbox, this team. We are still continuing our efforts on every other plane related to homelessness. This is just a new way to try and get at those people who are unsheltered and living in encampments, for whatever reason, not entering into shelter. So yes, again, we will try and bring those resources to them where they are. We're also going to be bringing in Mandy Chapman-Semple in July, who is a national expert on encampment decommissioning. It's not a quick fix, I'll be honest with you. When you go in, it's about building trust. It's about getting people to open up about what their barriers are. We do see this team is going to be take some time for them to identify those needs and then pull together those resources. This will all be happening in tandem to other things that are happening within our department and others. But it is a resource that wasn't there before.
And then can you also explain how currently the system works regarding when individuals see people who are experiencing homelessness in the community. They do reach out to WPD HOT, but how does housing come into play after HOT has been initiated?
Sally, if I could jump in for just a second.
can.
Mayor, you had asked for a flow chart to address that very question, and Sally has prepared that. I'll let her summarize it, but we're going to send it out to all of you this week.
So our team comes into play in 3 different places in the flow chart, depending when the camp is identified and they may go out, confirm that camp still is there and what's happening at that camp. They will then reach out to the housing team, especially the unsheltered resource coordination team, to try and engage with the people at that camp. And that's going to happen when camps get posted. That goes hand in hand, but definitely in different lanes, if that makes sense. But then we're always going to be re-engaging with those individuals in that camp during the period in which it's been posted, all the way through to whatever happens at that point, whether they go into shelter, whether they're moved along, or we're able to connect them directly into housing. So we will engage. We have weekly meetings with the HOT team now, but I'll be honest, that team hears from them almost daily to try and connect with specific individuals.
Thank you, and thank you, City Manager. I know that the flow chart will be very helpful as we get community members asking us those very questions of how the process actually works. And so I look forward to getting the flow chart later this week.
Just one question, was it Mandy Campbell? Or
Mandy Chapman Semple.
Chapman,
Yeah,
okay. She spoke at the housing conference this year, right?
she did.
Okay, so when is she going to be here?
Right now, we're tentatively looking at July 10th and 11th, so long as there are no bumps in our schedule and our ability to identify a location. We're also working with her to build out the agenda so that we don't have people held for 2 straight days. It can be very targeted towards decision makers, towards people boots on the ground, towards peers, et cetera. So we'll know more about that this week, and we'll be sending out invitations for those who are interested in participating, and we hope any of you would want to be there.
Yes, please send those. I did sit in on that discussion, and definitely a very interesting topic, and she has just a wealth of knowledge with it. So fully recommend any of my peers trying to make that if they can as well. Thanks, Sally.
Yes.
I see no further questions. We'll open it up for public comment. I see none. Bringing it back, I move to approve consent agenda item number 13.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Board of Bids and Contracts dated June 23rd, 2025.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Josh Lauber, Department of Finance. The Board of Bids and Contracts convened yesterday, June 23rd, 2025, for the following items. We have for purchasing the 2-inch custom setters, 20-inch monitor covers, and 21-inch and 30-inch meter boxes for Wichita Wind Water Works Company Group 1 for $99,418.20, and Mountain Wind Supply Company LLC for Groups 2 and 3 for $27,300 and $104,772 for the aggregate total listed. We have the removal and mattress and box springs for recycling for Mid-Kansas Services LLC in the amount of $105,000 estimated annual usage. We have the roof replacement for Alford Library for AR Roofing for $94,760. We have the on-call engineering services related to small projects, contract change order, requesting your authorization to have these 5 firms extend their contract 60 days, ending September 30th, 2025. Public Works and Utilities will be bringing you back something for the new business presentation once this is completed evaluation. We have the fire hose with couplings for contract change order for Weiss Fire and Safety Equipment LLC for the amended amount of $306,148.60. This is how to become a vendor with the city.
This is a purchasing calendar of small business resource partner events that the city is hosting or participating in. And these are open public opportunities. And we're starting to ramp back up, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions and recommend your approval.
Thank you, Josh. Questions? I see none. I move to approve the Board of Bids and Contracts dated June 23rd, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Petitions for public improvements.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members, Paul Gunsman, Public Works and Utilities for the record. Have a few petitions for your consideration this morning. The signatures on the petitions represent 100% of the improvement districts, and the petitions are valid per Kansas statute. Clear Creek 3rd and 4th editions located in District 2. The project will provide stormwater drain improvements required for a new residential development. Cottonwood Creek's Estates, located in District 4. The projects will provide water, sanitary sewer, and paving improvements required for a new residential development. And Cottonwood Creek's Estates, again in District 4. On September 24th, 2024, the City Council approved water, sanitary sewer, and paving improvements required for a new residential development. The developer has submitted revised petitions with revised budgets to reflect current market conditions. With that, it is recommended that the City Council approve the new and revised petitions and budgets, adopt the new and amending resolutions, and authorize the necessary signatures. And as a reminder, these are paid by special assessments.
Thank you, Paul. Questions? I see none. I move to approve the petitions for public improvements.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Approve that pursuant to Section 204090, Councilmember Tuttle's travel expenses as estimated on the travel authorization and expense form to attend the Kansas Society of Professional Engineers Conference in Dodge City, Kansas, June 26, 2025, for the purpose of representing the City of Wichita, consistent with AR 3.1. Upon return from travel, actual expenses will be reported to the Controller's Office.
I move to approve this travel.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Approval to exceed the gift limit established by the Ethics Ordinance for Mayor Wu to accept tuition, travel, and expenses to attend the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative in New York City, July 13th through 16th, 2025, Harvard University Spring 2026, and 5 virtual sessions for the purpose of representing the city. The Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative is hosted by Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Harvard Kennedy School, and the Harvard Business School for the purpose of education, collaboration, professional development. The Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative serves as a platform to equip mayors and senior city leaders with the tools and expertise to expand their problem-solving capacity, strengthen their city halls, and improve outcomes for residents. The estimated gift amount for tuition, travel, hotel, and meals is $16,378. No taxpayer dollars will be used.
I move to approve the travel to Mayor Wu to New York City.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Before we move on from travel, I would like to remove a travel that was approved previously for myself, Mayor Wu, to attend the city-to-city visit to Detroit, Michigan. I will no longer be attending. Please have that reflected on the website. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Council member appointments and comments.
We'll start with appointments. Council members, any appointments? I see none. Council member comments now.
I have one. Music theater waitress was absolutely fabulous. So one of the best ever, and if you missed it, which a lot of people did because it wasn't very full, you missed out on a very good performance. Very good performance. The lead was absolutely tremendous. We just got back from New York, watched a couple plays in New York, and she is just as good, if not better, than the people in New York. So congratulations, MTW.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. First, congratulations to Angela on her new position with Park and Rec. It's really exciting. I saw her over there. Two, the conversation around new residential development made me think about maybe we should have a conversation. There's a lot of excitement about Cheney being a lot fuller than it had been, but I think we need to work towards a culture shift of water conservation in perpetuity in the city. And looking at new residential development, considering what we can do to strongly encourage or require drought-resistant grasses or plants and things like that. And since more homes are being built and neighborhoods being created, I think that conversation should happen sooner than later. And there are a lot of people online asking, can they go back to watering their lawns every day, which you don't need to do, but I think we should start having those discussions now. Making those tough choices now will ensure that we have water access for our community for the foreseeable future. So I would like to see that maybe sometime soon, if you all agree, and maybe work with our staff on that. And I know Gary's been working on a few things, but I think we should definitely have those conversations.
And along those same lines, I think we should still pursue full steam ahead with the water reuse program. That's definitely something. I think droughts are just going to be longer and more common in the future, and setting our city up for sustainability long-term is definitely one of our main objectives here.
I'll just add on, Councilmember Holeheisel and I have the pleasure of serving on the Water Reuse Task Force, and I traveled with staff a few weeks ago to Topeka and also to Manhattan to meet with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Department of Agriculture, because there has to be rulemaking even done in Topeka regarding regulation and legislation. But a few of the events that I've attended and in a conference that I attended regarding water reuse, one of the things that they emphasized is exactly what Councilmember Johnson said, that, you know, we should always just live our lives like we're in drought, and, you know, not go back to the way we were doing things prior. The community now has the appetite for this, so I think it's really important just to keep it on the forefront. It's very hard to talk about drought when we've had flooding in the last couple weeks, but we're entering into the two hottest months of the year, and that's when we see a great deal of evaporation at Cheney. So I'm completely supportive and would like to explore the topic as well. Thank you.
I'll just have city manager just address that really quickly, because I know Gary has been working on this alongside council members right here throughout this last year. I know that WABA has been initiated in terms of having part of that conversation and development. Can you just address maybe some of where we're at and where we're going to go moving forward?
Sure, Mayor. I think what we'll probably do is schedule this for a July workshop based on the feedback I'm getting today. We are in the process of drafting changes to our policy, our drought policy, that would put into place permanently some restrictions on water use even after we're out of the drought stages. It would allow for obviously much more use of water for landscaping than we currently have under stage 2, but it would recognize the water is a valuable commodity and that we do need to encourage conservation. So we've got, actually there's 2 provisions to the policy that we want to bring forward to discuss with you as changes. If you remember, when we first entered into the drought, we brought Kansas State Extension to a council meeting to talk about planting guidelines and talking about conversion of, from fescue, for instance, to other more drought-tolerant grasses. We'd love to have them come back. We'll probably try to include that in the workshop as well, to talk about best practices and things that people should be considering. And we'll also hopefully conclude our conversations with WABA and be able to bring back some thoughts from the home builders as well.
Mr. Manager, one thing I would like to include, and you and I have talked about this as well, but I'd be interested in hearing my colleagues, especially in the workshop, of when we look at well usage for city water usage, that the same policy is held to both. I think when we are trying to message, particularly my district out west, and I think JV's is 50% well and city water. So trying to message dual messaging and telling some people they can water and some people they can't was challenging during the drought, and I think holding to the same standard well users as well as residential water customer usage would make sense moving forward if we look at how we revise drought policy when and if we come to this again in the future.
Thank you.
I would just add, with our water rebate program, I did have a lot of people asking would the city help with established lawns, which I think is super expensive, but if we looked at maybe incentivizing purchasing seed, because those are like $30, $40 a bag, and I think some of our rebates on shower heads and stuff were around that amount. So maybe we can encourage people as we get out of those stages to shift their lawn to a more drought-resistant or native type of grass that might be a little better for them, and that could help if you buy 2 or 3 bags of seed per year. So something to add to the conversation.
I would just add, over at the new dog park in Delano, it looked like they were putting sod down, but it was Bermuda. So I was happy to see that we're kind of leading the way and not just talking the talk and hoping that others do it, that we're setting that example too. Also, it was a very hot day for Juneteenth, but it was super awesome and really happy to see so many people show up and show out. And lastly, a huge thank you to Parks and Rec, Public Works and Utilities, Fire, and Police for working extremely hard trying to clean up our community and make sure that all of the trees are as safe as possible. So just a big thank you to you guys. I know you guys have been working double, triple, quadruple overtime trying to help. So thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Well, if I could just pick up on that. Vice Mayor had talked to us about reaching out to Sedgwick County, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but I think they're going to make an announcement today that they're also going to have a disposal site available on the south side of the county that will counterbalance or balance so that we'll have 2 locations where people can take debris for free at least through the end of the week.
I see no further comments. I will just finally add why everyone got a cup. So first and foremost, just got back from the Paris Air Show. Thank you for letting me represent our community. The air capital of the world is what we are known for. It's our advanced manufacturing workforce. And I can tell you that almost every other city that was there claimed to be the air capital. So if we're not careful, we may lose that moniker. And that's why it's so important for us to advocate for this city, to advocate for the people of this city. And so, again, had a great opportunity to represent the city alongside Senator Moran, Lieutenant Governor Tolan, Congressman Estes, as well as Sharice Davids, also House Majority Leader Chris Croft, and Sedgwick County Commissioner Pete Meitzner. We also had, I think, Susan Estes also was there. So thank you to all of the group for representing Kansas well and representing Wichita in the air capital. While I was there, I also took a trip out to see our sister city. So for those that don't know, Wichita has 4 sister cities. One of them happens to be Orléans, France, which is just southwest of Paris. And the council sends their greetings. Their council is made up of 55 city council members, and their metropolitan council is actually made up of 89 council members. They also don't get public comment in their council meetings. Public comment is given to each of the council members at their advisory board meetings, and then those council members get up to 2 questions that they get to ask during a council meeting. So it's very interesting to see how council meetings are run around the world. And again, had the opportunity to meet the mayor of Orleans. He also sends his greetings. And so part of his gift to the city of Wichita is some tea from Orleans. So that's what the cup is for. It's tea from Orleans, and they made special labels for honoring their sister city. Their other sister city happens to be New Orleans, Louisiana, and one of their representatives happened to be there at that time as well. And so I've been chatting with folks around the community who remember back in 1985, Cake News went to Orleans, France, 40 years after World War II. To commemorate the friendship between Wichita and Orleans. And the reason why we became sister cities is because military men from Kansas and from Wichita helped liberate Orleans from the Nazis in World War II. And so they have a special plaque in front of their city hall that literally says, thank you to our military men and women, but more specifically Wichita and Kansas. And so I'm very grateful that that friendship has continued. As you can see, just last year, we found out that Joan of Arc, we have another Joan of Arc that is now on display, and it greets you at City Hall now. That was the original gift from Orleans, and a replica was created that is sitting in front of the former Central Library now. So we have 2 Joan of Arcs, and the story behind Joan of Arc is that Joan of Arc also liberated Orleans during the 100-Year War. So we have a history that is important, and I'm very grateful that we continue this friendship and this collaboration, and thank you to the nonprofit Wichita Area Sister Cities for helping us set that up. So cheers, this is some tea, and I'll pass it around to all of you.
Here, I need to make an appointment.
Oh.
I'm really sorry. Is that okay to go now? Okay, I'm so sorry. I need to appoint Rosa Cisneros to the CSBG board.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. I see no further appointments or comments, so I will move to adjourn this meeting so we can start our workshop.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I see none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Well, congratulations. This is your last budget workshop. You've been doing these since January, and we're now in the final stretch of preparing the recommended budget for your consideration. Today, what we want to do is update you, show you how we used feedback from your last workshop to revise some of our recommendations, and to share with you some information that we recently received regarding our evaluation and what impact that will have on the budget going forward. And then second, the mayor had asked that we share the results from a review of our parking garage system, and we're going to provide that. And then if we have time, and if you want to hear, we can talk to you a little bit about the implementation of the parking plan and where we stand today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Manning to cover the budget portion of today's workshop.
Well, good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Mark Manning with the Department of Finance. And as soon as my PowerPoint loads up here, we'll get rolling. I guess that's on me. Okay, we're ready to go. Great news this morning, no limit on questions. Ask as many questions as you want. So today, I have a few discussion points I want to talk about. I want to provide you some updates since our last workshop in May. As you know, we've had numerous workshops this year, and in May, we talked about, as the manager mentioned, some additional scenarios to get us to a balanced budget, and I want to provide an update on those. Every workshop, we've also updated our forecasts and brought you any information that we have based on things that we need to change from a technical standpoint, and I'll provide you a couple updates there. Then we want to provide you some additional options. Again, our objective here is to reach a balanced budget that we can present to you in July. So we want to present some additional options to you, one of which will include a proposal to reduce our mill levy for 2026. Then we'll shift focus to another areas. We have a few items we need to clean up. We need to talk about the CIP briefly. I'll just give you an update on where that process is at because that's running concurrent with our budget process. And then, as you know, you levy taxes for the downtown SMID, which is a self-supporting municipal improvement district, or what we call the SMID. Your function is only to levy the taxes on their behalf, and we have some issues there that we'd like to mention to you. We'll wrap up talking about our engagement summary, and then I want to outline a few next steps, some of the steps that staff has to do in order to complete the budget process and some of the functions that we'll ask you to do based on state statute. So let's jump right in. I just wanted to provide a recap of some of the stuff we previously talked about. Again, and all this is incorporated in the information I'm going to provide with you today. As I noted, we keep incorporating things as we continue to get feedback. We've talked about centralization of financial services. We presented to you, I think, in February, some more empirical research on facilities division and public works reorganization and street maintenance. We've talked about court staffing and how the activity levels there are diminished and how we could restructure that area. And again, we've incorporated things from all of that. We've provided some updates on some expenditure items, and then we've looked at revenues, particularly on interest earnings. We've made adjustments there, which have benefited our forecast for the most part. All of that got us to right here, and this is what we showed you on May 27th in the workshop, and that is that we were out of balance about $2 million in 2026 and somewhere around $5.5 million in 2027. Now, just for a frame of reference, the general fund is somewhere in the $340 million range. So those, while they're significant on a nominal basis, we're talking a little less than 1% in 26 and somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5% or so out of balance in 2027. But again, this was what our objective was, to move both of those numbers to zero. So we presented some items in the workshop on May 27th. I got a lot of feedback. And so the next slides, I want to go over what those items are, the feedback that we received, and the items that we have now modeled into the scenario that we're at now, again, based on the feedback that we received. Let's see if I can get this out of the way real quick.
Mark, if you could reference, just a reminder, I want to put context, not so much for the council because you know this, but for the public. The 2026 recommendations will be included in the recommended budget. The 2027 recommendations are a way that you can balance the 2027 budget. It provides a framework for your ongoing discussions about 2027, but you will not be locking us into these expenditure reductions or revenue changes formally. But again, this would be a statement of intent on how we could get balanced this time next year for the 2027 budget. Our goal is to provide you with a balanced budget framework for both, for a balanced budget for 26 and a balanced budget framework for 27.
Yeah, the manager's exactly right. By statute, you only have to adopt the 2026 budget. That's your legal requirement. But we actually typically do a financial plan out 5 years in some level of detail, but we also do a more detailed budget for 27, but the manager's exactly right. Your legal commitment is only to adopt the 2026 budget. So I've got, I think, about 15 items. I won't go over each one because we talked about most of these in the May workshop. I just point out a few. You'll see item number 3, that is a reduction in the public art component of the capital improvement plan. Currently, by ordinance, we allocate approximately 2% of certain local revenue streams for public art in the CIP, and this would essentially allocate 1% for those, of those streams for public art, and that would
Hey,
reduce.
Mark.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Now that 900,000, is that cash?
Yes, we would reduce the CIP by 900,000 and essentially shift that mill levy into the general fund, so yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I didn't know if it was half of that was cash and then the other half was debt.
I would consider it cash from your perspective. We typically don't debt finance things like public art. We would cash fund them. So in effect, we would roll that into the operating budget, into the general fund. Through
Okay,
some
appreciate
mechanics.
it.
Here's a few more items. On this slide, I'll point out municipal court. I talked about municipal court already. Again, we've been examining court for quite some time. Their activity levels are significantly diminished. We talked about that on the revenue side. We've talked about that since last year and how that's impacted our revenue stream pretty significantly. But we tried to right-size court, again, worked with court staff, and so we have some additional recommendations there, working with them. On this slide here, again, I'll point out item 15. That is a cost recovery study that we would like to embark upon. We've talked a lot about the cost pyramid and our model of looking at the benefit of certain city services and trying to maybe allocate fees more towards those that have individual benefits as opposed to benefits for a larger group. So what we'd like to do is study holistically and comprehensively our fee structure and identify options for you to try to recover greater portions of our costs, again, using the cost pyramid methodology where services that we provide that have a more individualistic benefit, maybe we get closer to full cost on.
Mark, quick question when it comes to the cost recovery study. Is that an investment of $250,000 to be able to study the recovery, or is that what we project to save in 2027?
That's what we project that we could generate in additional revenues in 2027.
Do we know what the study cost would be?
We haven't got to that point yet. We've done similar work like that. I'm going to guess $25,000 or $30,000, but
But it'd be a similar investment, you know, your previous slide about the previous reduction initiative, so the centralizing financial services, which is what we voted on last August, to be able to make an investment, to then hopefully recoup savings later. That's similar under the cost recovery study.
yes, very similar. We have a couple firms that are familiar with us that do similar type work for that. We would probably try to engage one of those. And
Okay, thank you.
So let me summarize everything I just showed on those. Obviously, I didn't go through each one. I could if you wanted to, but in the interest of time, I won't because we've talked about them before. So this summarizes where I think we'll be with the incorporation of those 15 items. Again, you can see at the top, we started out at about 2 million out in 26 and about 5.5 million out in 27. That's what we presented to you on May 27th. With the incorporation of those items, we would expect to be pretty close to balanced in 2026 or out maybe $200,000. I'm using round numbers here, obviously in millions to make it simpler. And in 2027, we still have a challenge, but our challenge is a little bit less than what it was. We would expect to be out of balance somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.3 million in 2027.
Hey, Mike, quick question. Back in February of 2024, what was that projection for 2027? Do you
February
remember?
24, February 25.
February of 24, so a year and a few months change approximately.
I don't recall, Mayor. I'm sure I could find out. Manager Price.
I believe it was in excess of $10 million, if I remember, for 27.
It was sizable.
10.9, 11, that's what we're thinking.
I would like to see,
Sure.
I know that we have that slide somewhere in our handouts from back in February of 24, but I'd like to see that in comparison to what we now have as a projection.
Sure.
Thanks.
No problem. I can do that. So this is where we're at today. 200,000 out of balance in 2026 and maybe about $1.3 million out in 2027. And again, our objective is to push both of those to zero when we present the proposed budget in July. So as I noted, we continually update our forecast based on new information. And I mentioned, I think in May, that probably the last piece of new information we were waiting for was valuation estimates that the county clerk provides us by statute by June 15th. We have in fact gotten those estimates, and so we need to incorporate those into our forecasts. That's shown on the property tax line. Valuation came in a little higher than what we expected. And so under our current policy, if we maintain a current flat mill levy based on the valuation estimates the county provided us, we would pick up about $3.5 million each year over the next 2 years to round. We have continually examined our budget. We have another $600,000 or so in adjustments that we need to make technical standpoint. But the bottom line is, what this chart shows you is, based on where we think we are today, based on using the county estimates, we would actually flip to a positive position in 26 and 27 of roughly a little over $2 million each year.
A couple of quick questions here. That is still including the $3 million from the permanent reserve?
Yes, sir.
That we're using to float. So, okay,
Yes, sir.
so if we didn't have that permanent reserve, we'd be about 400,000 short next year and 700,000 short the year after.
Yes, sir, you are completely correct.
Okay, and also the future projections, what is the property tax rate there? I mean, it's like 8.4% now. What's that based off of in 27 going forward? Is around 4%?
The growth rate that we assume on assessed value, we've
Yes, sir.
taken a more conservative slant in the future because we don't believe that the valuation that we've experienced over the last few years is going to last. We are down to, I think, 4.9% in 27, and then we've moderated back to what we consider normal, which is somewhere in the 4% range. Now, valuation, as you know, is based on a variety of factors. Annexation, which hasn't been too active here, but expiring abatements. We're going to have a fairly significant TIF that probably comes on the tax rolls in 27 that'll give us a boost. It's also due to new construction, which is typically 1% and 1.5% a year, and the rest of it is due to reappraisal. So basically all those combined, we've estimated around 4% a year in the out years.
Okay, appreciate it.
So based on this, what I would call the revised projection as of today, staff has developed a few additional options potentially for you to consider. Those are shown on this page. The first one is a scenario in which you could consider reducing the mill levy by about $0.5 million. That actually would reduce our position, obviously, because it would reduce our revenues. It would reduce our revenues by roughly $2.5 million each year over the next couple of years. But again, that would reduce our mill levy by about $0.5 million approximately. We've got a few additional expenditure reduction items in 2027. A couple of these we've talked about before in different formats. These are much perhaps more palatable than what we presented earlier. That is police security. This would just involve reallocating our positions and eliminating one position. Animal control. This would just involve reducing services on weekends on the animal control side. Again, we had proposals on both those previously, but they were differently structured. Two new ones on this page. That is number 17. Libraries making some investments in solar power, and we think that we have the opportunity to maybe reduce our costs there when those are completed, which would be 2027. And then IT is working at all their contracts, particularly for add-on or bolt-on type software. That's inherently a little bit dangerous, if I can use that word, to have those kind of applications. So they're looking at it from that standpoint, but I think they're also looking at it of the standpoint of eliminating additional maintenance costs on some of those standalone contracts. So we think we can pick up $100,000 there. But again, we have some different cost scenarios here, the largest one being an opportunity to reduce the mill levy. And these would impact the forecast by about $2.6 million in the current year and about $2.2 million in the out year. If you remembered what I showed you 3 slides ago, you can see that that would get us to a balanced budget in 2026 and 2027 with those scenarios included. Of course, that's what our objective is, to reach a balanced budget when we present that to you in July. So I'll take a quick pause point there if there's any more questions.
2 quick things. One, I want to give a particular shout out. If we go back 1 slide, to library. Thank you, Jamie, and your staff, I think, for showing this cost recovery in the future. I think this is innovative, and I hope other departments look at opportunities to do cost savings like this. But I think moving our libraries towards solar in the future saves us in the long term, and I think aligns with the community's priorities about conservation as well. So thank you. And then a larger part of this, Mark, I want to thank you. I want to thank the manager for bringing item number 16 to us. The public wants property tax reduction. Every single person I talk to believes that it is burdensome for them, and I think even taking one step to reduce $500,000 shows that we're serious about spending tax dollars wisely. I don't have any consternation about any of the other items regarding costs recovery and also some of the savings, and so I will be very likely to support the property tax reduction. I want to thank you for the work on this, and I think it moves us in the right direction. It's not where the public wants us to be, but it moves us there, and so thank you for your staff moving forward and presenting this today as well.
Thank you.
Mark, can you give us some historical reference as well? Because I think this would be the first time in 30 years, if that 35 years. Can you just address that?
Yeah, sure. Our policy here at the city is, for the last 30-plus years or so, has been to keep a relatively steady levy. And I think you're right. Based on what I've looked at over the years, this would be the first time in over 30 years that we have adopted a budget with a lower estimated mill levy than the prior year. Last time we did that, I think I pointed out, last workshop was when the sales tax was passed and we reduced our mill levy, but that was because of the sales tax.
What does a $500,000 save an average family?
Well, it depends on the size of their house, but if you look what an average house is in Wichita, based on the records that we have, it would save the average family about $15 a year.
$15 a year?
Yeah.
And about, what is that average house, about $160,000?
About $260,000 is the information that we have.
$260,000 is the average house in the city, and that would save them $15.
Yeah.
So my house, that's half of that, probably. It'd save me $7.50.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, have there been any conversations about talking about solar use on like the new fire stations that we're looking at to have some type of cost savings as well?
All we have done is just presented an option on this side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of anything regarding what you're referring to there.
And if I can also.
I'm not sure in terms of the west side substation for police, we're just starting the design process for fire stations. And we can talk about that in the mix, about whether that's a wise investment.
Okay. I think just including it in the conversation to see, if it's beneficial, at least we can check that box. So thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Also, does this include the genealogy savings from the library? No? Okay, we pushed, okay.
I think library's looking at how they can allocate their staff effectively, but this does not incorporate any savings from that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I appreciate the work done on this. Not in favor of item 16, $15 savings to a household. Real money, but I think the impact to local government going forward will be greater. I don't see councils, again, we're looking at reducing a mill levy, not raising a mill levy. And over time, I think that's going to be harmful to a lot of the services that citizens want. Also not in favor of, I know it's just a placeholder and suggestion, but reducing the public art by $900,000, not supportive of that. Again, I appreciate the work being done and trying to get to a balanced budget, but I think that we are setting ourselves up for future councils, not ourselves. We're setting up future councils, because I won't be on the council, for harder decisions to make regarding the services that people want. And we're already seeing that costs are continuing to go up. As we highlighted how long it's been since that mill levy's been adjusted, I thought about back then computers used to be the size of this room, and now they can fit in the palm of your hand. Everything's getting more expensive just to take care of folks, not doing grandiose things. And we're talking about reducing the mill levy and really making things probably in the future a little more difficult for folks. So I'm not supportive of that, but I do appreciate the work that you all did to get to those numbers.
And if we're going to go ahead and have the mill levy discussion now, that's fine. I do have some thoughts. You know, these numbers are also being artificially floated by the permanent reserve. Past councils we've had, we've gone over, we've had a surplus, and instead we put it into the permanent reserve, did the responsible things so we could step down. So just bear in mind, and I've said this at the beginning when I was urging some hesitancy with just going full-on gangbusters with some of the cuts, that you never know until further along in the budget process exactly what the real numbers are. So I look at it, I also realize that we have discussions about a potential sales tax and mill levy reduction in the future. I think that would be the time to bring up the mill levy discussion and kind of a whole. So I'm looking at these numbers, and I still see some things that we do need to catch up on. Dead tree removal. With the recent storms that we had, there were a ton of trees that came down on limbs. We're about 2 years behind. We do have a program going right now where we are hiring out contractors to help catch up with dead tree removal. That's a public safety issue there. Spay and neuter for animals. If we look at the numbers down at the animal shelter, if we're going to set ourselves up to reduce those numbers long-term, we have to think long-term. And spay and neuter clinics are definitely something I think that can help with future generations, saving animals' lives. Because we're not overflowing the system. And that's what we are seeing nowadays with the animal shelter, is the lack of spay and neutering that was going on during the COVID years. So that's something else. And then also making the homestead tax credit permanent. That's something we did here 2 years ago for the most needy families that we have in our community. I would like to see, irregardless of how this discussion goes, making that tax cut in particular permanent, alongside with the disabled American veterans property tax cuts. I think that was a great program that we ran. We had some ARPA money to do that. I would like to see those made permanent as well. So again, I'm not against the whole mill levy reduction. I just think it needs to be part of a bigger conversation instead of just bending the curve here a little bit at a time. But if we do want to go down that path with next year's surplus, what I would suggest is rebates, just across the board rebates, maybe just your individual home, every homeowner gets one for their primary residence. That would give a little more pop in the rebate for the homeowners, because maybe then you'll be getting a $30 check or something like that just across the board. So that's, if we want to return this money to the taxpayers, I think that would be a better way of doing it, instead of lowering the mill levy outside of the potential sales tax discussion that we have going forward.
I agree with Councilmember Hoheisel on that, and I would just add that I appreciate the discussion of investing tax dollars into a real need in the community, which was definitely on display with all the wind we just had. And that's something that we've been hearing about for years on dead tree removal and all the complaints that we've received on that. So there's a lot of dead trees out there and a lot of folks reaching out. And I know Park and Rec is working to catch up on all of that. That type of investment, I think, would be a real benefit to the community if we put even more money into that, supporting Park and Rec and contracting out, trying to catch up on the 18 months of that. So I think those types of investments and those suggestions are good.
Mark, could you address the issue of a across-the-board rebate?
Yes. I understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Hoheisel, but that would be administratively very challenging for us to do. From our understanding, there's about 180,000 tax-paying parcels in Wichita. And so if we were going to attempt to provide them a rebate, we literally would have to collect data on 180,000 parcels, which we would have, but then we would have to issue some form of payment to 180,000 different unique entities. Could we do it? Yes, we could do it. Would it be a significant use of resources? Yes, it would be. Likely the cost could approach or exceed the amount of refunds that we would be providing. Now, you did mention our property tax rebate program that we implemented, I think, 2 years ago. We did the exact same thing on a much smaller scale, and it was income-based, as you referred to, too. We were able to administer that, although I will tell you that we were a little disappointed. Participation wasn't as much as what we had expected. We saw a lot of it on the senior side, and those rebates were generally in the neighborhood of $200, $250 per person, which we were happy to provide. We didn't see a whole lot of applications more on the other two phases of it, which was for disabled veterans and other folks. Those applications were a lot less likely to come in, and the rebate amounts turned out to be a lot less. So that was the model which we used a couple of years ago. We were able to administer that. I think it would be a challenge to administer something quite as broad as maybe what you suggested.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance, sure, but
Okay, well, and just for clarification, I'd still like to look into it. It wouldn't be individual property owners getting tax rebate on all of them. It would be every person who owns property getting one, and it would be more even across the board. That would be my preference. Again, it's more bang for the buck, especially the people who are out there. And then you talk about $200, $250 for those seniors. That matters a lot for those seniors. So again, I think more targeted and potentially will help out more people who are really feeling the pinch. Now, I know everybody's feeling the pinch, but some of it feel it disproportionately more than others.
I will politely disagree with you. To rebate a $30 check is probably going to cost us $30 in staff time and cost. And that's just not a good, efficient use of taxpayers' money to pay $30 to give people a $30 check. It's a lot easier just to reduce the mill levy. And then I would like to have the discussion in the future of a sales tax to replace some of the property tax. 20 to 30% of a sales tax in Wichita is paid by people outside of the Wichita city limits. So there's where we could really make a substantial difference, but I think we'd have our heads in the sand if we have these huge property tax valuations increases and don't give some sort of property tax relief, even if it is only $15, $30, $50, whatever it is. So I think it's important.
And to Councilman Hoheisel's point, I'm interested in moving forward on the sales tax discussion now. If that's something we can move forward with so individuals in our community can see relief, I think a $0.5 reduction is moving in the right direction. But if we can have a substantive conversation where next year families are seeing a $10 reduction, I think they will trust us to move forward on essential services, and they will see that we're taking their concerns seriously as well. And so if any of my colleagues are interested, I'm ready to move now on reducing property taxes in a much more substantive way as well. But I think this is symbolic to our community that we're moving in the right direction and hopefully building trust. So when we go towards a sales tax referendum, they know that we'll be reducing their mill by 10 to 12 mil moving forward as well.
I will just add my 2 cents to this. I was very appreciative to hear this from City Manager Layton. I know that this took a lot of work, and I know this would be historic. For the first time in over 30 years, there could be a reduction in the mill levy. That is historic, and I think it does set the conversation for our community. There are wants and there are needs. There are needs like tree limb pickup. But what are wants? And I keep hearing a lot of wants, and wants need to be prioritized after we've met all the needs. And needs are when we call 911, we want to make sure a firefighter, a police officer, or an EMS from Sedgwick County will show up. And so those are critical. It's also critical that Public Works shows up and make sure that that tree that is blocking the street alongside parks is able to make sure that we can safely traverse around our community. So I believe that it is prudent for us to have a mill levy reduction, and seeing it for the first time in over 30 years, I think does say something to our community that we are serious about focusing on needs first.
And again, I can appreciate that, but there was one word that it's symbolic. If we want to do it, let's make sure that we do it to where it's meaningful. And right now, again, $15 for a person who owns a house, that's $200 and some odd $1,000, $7, $8 for somebody like me. I say put it off and do it in a meaningful manner a little further down the road when we do have these discussions. And I'm fine with having the discussions at 10 mills. That was a little surprising to hear today. I think it's been around 6 up to this point. But again, that's, that's part of this democracy. That's part of this body's deliberations going forward. So I'm always interested to hear that discussion.
I also agree. I think we get more out of the headline than actual property tax benefit at that amount. I would also say, as we talk about wants and needs, we have to truly think more deeply about wants and needs. If we say public art or parks is a want, I would push back when we look at if we want to see a crime reduction, if we want to see more opportunities for people, then I would say parks and arts. Those are things that will help. There are young people who are super talented and may not fully know that yet, that are out making some decisions they shouldn't, and the opportunities that we provide through the public art funding actually could shift that, and they could see that there is a future there. There's so many graffiti artists that are doing things for the city right now that before they were being arrested, they were being fined, they were being ticketed, and now they're out teaching art to other folks and doing things the right way and making money the right way, and it comes from opportunities from us. So as we continue to talk about wants and needs, growing up poor, a lot of things that people would say as a want was something that I needed and something that benefited me. And there's so many in the community like that. And I know that we all talk to different people, but wants and needs really aren't wants and needs. A want might be some shiny thing, but to some folks, but that's a need for other people. I'll even use what we just saw with the public bathrooms downtown at Price Woodward Park. I saw a long line of people excited about using that, and that was talked about as a want by some people in the community and even on this body. But I saw people using it, and they're grateful for it, and they're glad that it's out there. These things are getting used. So as we talk wants and needs, a lot of the things that we're talking about really are needs, just not be seen as a need by some of us. But those are needs in the community, and those are worthwhile investments to be made. And I just think we have to be careful when we talk about that, because a lot of people who need those things are listening to us and then say, well, I'm not being seen by the body that's supposed to represent me.
So one thing I should point out, and Councilmember Johnson mentioned it, and I should have mentioned this earlier. Earlier in this process, we had offered some proposals around tree trimming, stump removal. I think we had a proposal about fire staffing and a few other things. Those were always in the category of things that we knew were significant service degradations. I would tell you that none of those are included in the model which I have presented here. And again, that's based on the feedback we received from you at prior workshops. I should have mentioned that earlier. So let me kind of summarize where we're at now on our budget process. Because again, our objective is to produce a budget book that you can receive on July 15th. So we're going to develop that book, again, based on funding department tactics aligned specifically to your strategic plan, which we've talked about over the last several months, and that is to your pillars, your goals, and your strategies. That's the methodology that we're using as we develop this budget. Again, very important that's understood, because that's the model that we're using. I mentioned previously the second bullet there, this would be the first time, and I'm going to fact check myself as I look at this slide. I think it's probably more accurate to say in over 30 years. I have to check myself. I can't remember whether it was 33, 34, 35. I should have corrected this slide previously, but it's definitely more than 30 years. Finally, I should point out that we have had some significant reductions in departmental expenditures. Those are all the things I mentioned before. Again, those were designed to be things that were either inward facing and not external facing to our residents, and those were things that were designed to be based on increased efficiency and things of that matter. But we have reduced somewhere north of $4 million from our budget in the scenario that you've seen right there. By the way, here's what our mill levy would look like. Under that scenario, you can see that it would be a reduction of about 0.5 mills. Recall last year we increased the debt service fund mill levy on a one-time basis, so that's why the slide looks the way it looks. We would revert the debt service fund back to 7 mills, which is what we'd planned to do all along. And on a net basis, our total mill levy, which is what we always look at, total mill levy would be 0.5 mills lower than what it is now. And as I mentioned, when we talked about sales tax last month, I won't rehash those charts, but I would point out that 32.3 mills is one of the lowest mill levies in the metropolitan area. It's the lowest mill levy of the cities in Sedgwick County, with the exception of one, which is much, much smaller than us. And it is one of the lowest mill levies in the state of Kansas in first-class cities, particularly those that do not have a local sales tax. So let's talk about the financial plan. Just have one slide on these. I'll go through the next topics relatively quickly, but I think it's important we talk about them. As I noted, we always do a 5-year financial plan. We've done that for years in our adopted budget, and we will continue to do that. We think that's important to identify trends in advance for your benefit. Councilmember mentioned the next bullet there. Just a reminder, we do plan to have a drawdown of the stabilization reserve. That's been longstanding in our financial plan, and that will be reflected. Incidentally, we do a financial plan more than just the general fund. We do it for all our funds. We have about 36 total funds. It's about, including our TIFs and all our other funds, and it's about a 50-page supplement in our adopted budget. We've mentioned the last bullet numerous times, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but these are some of the things we consider as we develop that long-term financial plan for you. That is wage and benefit costs and rates, and we've talked about that a lot. We've got several contracts coming up which will influence how that variable impacts our long-term financial plans. Economic conditions, recessions, interest rates, we've talked a lot about that, so I won't go into that. But again, we'll use those metrics to develop our long-term financial plan. And we're always looking towards capturing any restructuring savings. And then finally, maybe based to Councilmember Ballard's question earlier, we always include council initiatives in our long-term financial plan if we know about them or they've been pronounced, but we will not include things typically in our financial plan that are just based on discussion topics. For example, perhaps the intent to expand public safety services in the future. We do include those when action is taken. We typically don't include those unless that action is taken. Let me talk about the capital improvement program with one slide too. I'm getting close to the end here. Apologize for the link today. We are actually completing the capital improvement program concurrent with the development of the operating budget. We haven't talked about it as much, but it's being developed concurrently. Again, it's based on the parameters that the City Council has told us to develop it around, and that is to continue to align it to the Comprehensive Community Investment Program, or the comp plan, and that plan has maintenance as our #1 priority. And so we have incorporated that in the CIP that you will receive. It's also structured to be financially viable. Again, that is aligned to your strategic plan in which we want to be a well-run city. So we will do that. We'll make sure debt levels are moderate and sustainable. And then finally, as I mentioned, it'll be based on a mill levy in the debt service fund of 7 mills, which again is aligned with your prior direction. So within those parameters, we'll develop the CIP and we will present that to you concurrently on July 15th. I mentioned the SMID. We need to talk about that briefly. Again, you levy taxes for 3 funds, 2 in the operating budget, the general fund and the debt service fund, and you also levy taxes for our special improvement district, which in this case is what we call the SMID. This is a specific taxing district only in downtown Wichita, and it's governed by themselves. In other words, the property owners in this taxing district, in effect, decide what taxes they want to levy upon themselves, and then they recommend to you that you levy it on their behalf. My understanding is that downtown Wichita is reviewing some of their options to expend some of the money in the SMID for increasing downtown security and cleanliness. They have efforts that have been pretty successful in those areas, and my understanding is they're looking to consider possibly expanding those areas. And if they do that, they might come to us with a revised proposal to ask you to levy an additional levy of taxes on their behalf. Again, we have not received any proposal from them yet, and we would expect that would be the first step, that their board asks you to consider that. But I just want to put it on your radar screens. If we do get a request from them, we would ask you to consider that. And again, it is your you are the only ones that can levy taxes on their behalf. So you'll see something incorporated in our budget. And again, I'd ask you to consider any feedback they give and provide us direction in that regard. Yes, sir.
If they were to go from 6.7 to 10 mils, how much more would that add to their possible operating budget?
I think it's in the neighborhood of about $380,000. Their valuation obviously is much smaller than our valuation. Right now, they're generating somewhere in the neighborhood of $880,000, and I think this would push them well over $1 million, so.
Thank you.
Mark, a couple more questions. I know that this is something that community wants us to focus on, and it's clean and safe. And I know that downtown Wichita has started a pilot program with an individual wearing bright colored clothing that is picking up trash, that is directing people, that is also helping individuals facing homelessness with resources or information. Can we get more information regarding that? Because if they'd like to see a mill levy increase, that would be, I'd like to know how the pilot program is working so far.
Yeah, I spoke with Heather yesterday, and I think that's what they are planning on doing, is compiling some information. And again, they need to run it by their board, but if their board agrees with the ask, I think you'll be seeing that type of information from them and perhaps an ask.
I will just add one more quick thing regarding that. In Orleans, they literally focused on clean and safe in their downtown, and their mayor has been around for 2 decades, and they saw a big difference when the focus was on clean and safe. So I'm just mentioning that because I know that that is a great emphasis regarding this conversation, but also regarding the parking conversation coming up.
And Councilmember Glasscock, I'm looking at my notes here, it looks like it'd be about $384,000. So anyway, we'll move on from the SMID. Again, I just want to put that on your radar screen. Let's talk about engagement a little bit. Engagement is the cornerstone of our budget development process. We take it very seriously, and we've done a lot of engagement. I want to rehash that briefly. We looked at the community survey results in January. We actually did the survey last year, I think in October. We looked at the results in January. Community survey, very important for us. It helps us to define what our community is interested in. So that's a very important leg of our engagement process. I think this is the 5th workshop we had. We actually took March off. But so 5 of the last 6 months, we've engaged you in workshops and discussed a variety of topics. We did go to our district advisory boards in May and hit all of those. We launched the budget simulator in May, and that actually will stay open until August 19th, I believe. We have so far gotten well over 500 responses to that, and typically 20-25% of people leave comments, so we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of over 100 comments. We will summarize that for you at some point. We won't probably wait until August 19th. We'll try to develop a summary of that earlier than that, but that is a very important tool that we use in our engagement toolbox. We also obviously have 4 public hearings coming up on the budget process, including 1 evening meeting that we've scheduled to facilitate community engagement. So we do have many, many opportunities for engagement, and we'll have a few more coming up. One thing we did want to mention is this year we are not planning on doing a social media town hall. We have done those in the past. That form is becoming a little less useful for us with less participation. We are using social media platforms to put out information, and it's been very beneficial to us, but we're not sure the social media town hall is the most effective strategy, so we don't plan on pursuing that strategy this year. Finally, I just want to let you know the work that staff has to do to push us to the finish line, and again, because I want to give you a perspective on the importance of providing us feedback perhaps sooner rather than later, because we do have a lot of work to do, a lot of details that we need to iron out in order to produce the budget to be technically accurate, and that's very important. A number of ordinances we have to prepare that are required by state statute, and pretty much everything we do is dictated by state statute. Certification forms is probably the most important thing we have to do. Think of that as you're preparing your tax return, kind of maybe a similar analogy, very complicated, lots of rules, and you have to get it right. So it's very important that we have time to complete that work. And of course, we have presentation material and the agenda report we have to prepare, which we like to try to get done as early as possible. And ultimately, obviously, we have to produce the budget document. That's very important because that is our communication device with our residents. That's what they see, so it's important that we get that produced in a timely manner. So this is all the work that we will do once we get guidance on some of the direction of some of the items we mentioned today. We need to have all this done in early July, and what are we in now, the 24th of June? So we've got about two and a half weeks to get all of that done, which we will do, obviously, but it'll be a challenge. Now let me shift to what you need to do. And again, this is based on state statute. So I want to tell you some of the dates that we have lined up and why those dates are established where they are and what we will ask you to do on those dates. July 15th is when the manager will present the proposed budget. And there's two things we'll ask you to do that day. One is to consider a resolution to approve the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Now, I won't go into much detail on revenue neutral rate because we've talked about it a lot, but essentially, if we want to levy $1 more than what we levied last year, you're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. But you do not have to do that if you choose not to. That's a policy decision. We typically recommend that you do because it doesn't lock you into anything. It just provides you flexibility to make that decision on August 26th. If you do not approve a resolution to express the intent to exceed the R&R, you are essentially locked into last year's total amount of taxes levied, which is about 10 or 15, somewhere in that neighborhood, million less than what you've seen in the scenarios presented here. But again, that is your decision. We have to get that information to the county by July 20th. That's the reason that we're going to ask you to do that on July 15th. Another very important thing that we're going to ask you to do on July 15th, again, based on state statute, we need you to approve what they call the publication of notice. This is a bunch of legal publications that we'll put in the appropriate forums, but basically statute requires you to do two things: set the maximum amount of expenditure authority for all of our funds, the maximum, and to set the maximum amount of taxes levied in all of our funds. Again, we can come down from that, we just cannot exceed those amounts. So it just provides you flexibility. You can reduce, but you do not have the flexibility to increase those amounts after we approve this publication notice on July 15th. So I would ask you to recognize that and the implications therein. Now, we'll have public hearings. I mentioned the public hearing will be on August 7th. That'll be at night. That's our evening meeting. Again, we've gotten great participation at those meetings in the past, and we look forward to that. And then the final thing we will ask you to do will occur on August 26th. And again, we will establish that date on July 15th, so we don't have any flexibility around this date either. On that date, you need to do two things as well. That is the date that you will actually consider whether to approve exceeding the R&R, assuming that you've expressed the intent to exceed the R&R. This is the day that you will actually vote to approve exceeding the R&R if that's your prerogative. And that has to be a separate hearing, again, based on state statute. So we'll have that hearing. And then the second thing we'll ask you to do is we need you to hold a hearing on the budget and to adopt the budget. And again, that has to be done on August 26th. So you did all that last year. I just wanted to make it clear the action steps that you were taking and the implications therein to hopefully make it a little clearer for you why we schedule dates when we schedule them. So I think that's a summary of what I just mentioned there.
Mark, we have another budget hearing, don't we?
Yes, there is
Between the
one.
7th and the 26th.
That's right.
Yep.
There is one other hearing. I didn't include it on the list because it wasn't an evening meeting and you don't have to take any action. But yes, there is one other public hearing on the budget. I think it's August 12th, if I remember correctly. So that's the end of my presentation, Mayor. Happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate the presentation. And again, I am looking forward to your recommendations that have come forward. And I really do think that that will set us up for a better 2027, but also having the conversation about what our community needs. I see none. We will now move on to parking.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to turn it over to our internal auditor, Christina Rose. And also Stephanie Knable was involved in this review and more importantly can give you an update on the parking plan implementation afterwards.
Morning, Mayor, City Council, Christina Rose, City Auditor for the record. There we go. So back in February, internal audit was asked to review the current parking garages, just the garages, the contract terms along with any outstanding receivables. Again, the review did not include contracts related to surface lots, the Old Town parking agreements, or private parking garages. If surface lots are discussed, it's because they're tied to a parking garage. Most of the agreements have the potential to be modified with the downtown parking plan, and parking fees, which are disputed by the tenant, are not included in this presentation. So we're gonna break this down. I kind of want to have an open discussion between garages. So if there's questions, I'm gonna pause and we can go through each one. The first one is the City Hall complex. This is the employee garage. It includes the surface lots at City Hall, Rounds and Porter, and the Epic Center. Car Park manages these contracts for non-employees who are part of the garage, and a good example of that would be the Wichita Federal Credit Union employees. And then Sedgwick County also leases stalls in the City Hall parking garage, Rounds and Porter, and the Epic Center. Any questions there? Okay. Old Town Cinema, there's 415 stalls associated with that. This is going to be a new downtown parking, or included in the new downtown parking plan. Currently, there are no outstanding receivables. All right, the Old Town Hotel Garage, 135 stalls. There's one lessee, Hote. They can lease up to 115 stalls, and they also have no overdue receivables. Any questions there? Okay. Next one, this is one of our larger ones. Market Street Garage has 450 stalls. Car Park leases 101 of those stalls out to 6 companies and 3 individuals. Kansas Com is one of the lessees as well. At 100 stalls, they have no overdue receivables. Douglas Market Development leases up to 335 stalls. High Touch leases up to 125 stalls and has no outstanding receivables.
Are there any outstanding receivables by others?
There are, and they are currently under dispute, so we will not be covering them today. The next one, any questions on that one? Okay, the next one's going to be your William Street Garage at 255 stalls. Car Park leases 111 of those stalls to 3 companies and 5 individuals. Kansas Com also leases up to 50 stalls, has no overdue receivables. Ambassador Hotel leases up to 125 stalls and has no overdue receivables. Slauson, which was assigned to Spartan Downtown LLC, also under Douglas Market Development, leases up to 100 stalls. Any overdue receivables are under dispute, so will not be discussed today. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yep. Any questions on that one? Okay. Emporia Street Garage, 650 stalls. Car Park leases 178 stalls to 10 companies and 5 individuals. Kansas Com again leases on this one at 50 stalls, has no overdue receivables. Kochner Legacy LLC leases up to 108 stalls, no overdue receivables. Continuing on Emporia Street.
Sorry, one question on that garage. Does that one have any under dispute as well?
We're continuing on that one. So Emporia Street?
Yes.
Yes, it'll be here on the next slide.
Okay, thanks.
Douglas Market Development leases 165 stalls. Those overdue receivables are under dispute. Hilton Garden Inn leases up to 90 stalls and has no overdue receivables. And that summarizes Emporia Street. Any questions on that?
So if I've summarized it correctly, Market, William, and Emporia have under dispute agreements. Is that correct? Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Water Walk Garage, 430 stalls. This also includes 60 surface lot stalls. Currently, King of Freight leases as many stalls as they need at a rate of $16.82 per stall. A plan is currently being developed to collect lost revenue totaling $6,790.20 due to missed increases in price per stall between 2022 and early 2025. In May 2025, just a little bit extra here, that was increased and that has taken effect. Continuing on Waterwalk, Waterwalk WP Inc. subleases parking and has a bill under dispute. Waterwalk Place Owners Association also subleases parking and has a bill under dispute. Realtors of South Central Kansas Inc. subleases parking and has 2 bills under dispute. And Midas subleases parking with no overdue receivables. Questions there?
So now I'm counting. That's 3 that we had. Now Waterwalk is also having some that have under dispute. Okay.
Drury Hotel, they lease up to 100 stalls for guests, no overdue receivables. And just as a side note, the city is not responsible for garage maintenance for Waterwalk or the Drury. Okay, and along with this review.
Can we, sorry.
That's fine.
Another question. So now in total, we have 4 garages that have basically individuals who have not paid their bills.
Essentially bills
Can you
that are
tell us
in
what's going, I know that they're under dispute, so you cannot go into further detail, but in big overview, can you just talk about what are the steps that are being taken moving forward so that when someone is given a bill, and if they don't proceed with providing their what's due, what are we doing now moving forward in terms of penalty or any other action?
Sure. So this is kind of an overall city policy, but we have a collections company that we send to collections when they have not paid their bills. We are required to notify them at least twice prior to doing that. So we try to do our due diligence there and then send it on for the collection agency. There is the ability to, depending on the contract, the ability to add on fees or interest to those payments that are not paid.
Christina, I have a few questions. And one, I'm thankful for the audit that you're doing. This might sound like a pointed question. I don't mean for it to, but what is the purpose of this presentation if we can't talk about anything that's under dispute?
That's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that, other than sharing what I was requested to share.
Okay. Can we talk about what the total amount disputed is, or is that not allowed to be mentioned either?
Can we? Okay, I don't actually have that number complete with me today, but I can give it to you. Actually, it should, no, it's not in the memo either. I'll provide that today. I
Okay.
have it at my desk. Just don't
And
have it here.
then, so I guess kind of in summary, if someone didn't want their debt talked about, they could just say they dispute it, and then it would be excluded from public record from there on after?
No, I don't think that was the purpose of this.
Okay.
No. Let's just stay with this for a second. These are small bills under dispute, represent maybe a month or 2. And it has to do with new leases that we implemented, and I think some concerns about the terms of those leases. So we're trying to work through that with the property owners. The other one, which impacted of multiple garages, is a much more significant issue, and one that could require some kind of action, legal action by the city if we can't resolve the dispute. And that's why, in that case, the person is, or that entity is not trying to avoid the discussion. We were trying to be careful to get it resolved short of legal action.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay. All right, so tied to this internal audit review, we also made 9 recommendations to help kind of better structure the parking fund or better manage the parking fund. The first one here is updating the financial structure in the city's financial software. And what this is going to do is going to help as the new parking plan is designed and other things are implemented, we will be able to track those better and be able to pull reports that are more easier to understand, more transparent. And with that, we'll be able to then provide more detailed biannual statements to the public related to the parking fund. That's not currently being done outside of the quarterly, so this will be in addition to the quarterly that's provided by finance. The third one is that we're going to require Car Park, and we already have done this, to provide more detailed documentation to the city, again, making that easier for the city to understand what's being done on their part under their contract. We're going to on the lease and development agreement language, that's going to be updated to state that the city will be sending out the monthly bills instead of relying on the lessee to do so. Previously, in some of our contracts, we've relied on the lessee to just pay their dues because it's stated that they will owe them. We are now taking that initiative to send them out from the city to make sure it's clear. Updates to the internal approval path. This is really internal controls. We noticed that the parking fund transactions were not flowing correctly, so that's been not started yet, but it is in process of discussion.
Quick question on that slide,
Sure.
Christina. Sorry, if you can go back. So up until this point, we were not even sending out bills. We were just trusting people to send in a check every once in
It
a
just
while?
depended on which contract it was. For the most part, we were sending out bills, but there were a couple that we relied on. King of Freight, for example, would send in their documentation to us, and we would then take care of it that way. But from here on out, 100% of them, the language will be changed for us, the city, to send it out.
This kind of goes outside of the scope of parking, but I want to make sure that that's happening with all of our
Sure.
payables as well. Or
Yep, that's fair.
receivables. Is that something
Receivables.
that we're looking at moving? And I know that would be in your department of an audit to make sure that we're sending out bills every single time instead of just relying on people to pay us.
Right. That's one of the reasons why we've talked about the centralization of accounts payable and accounts receivable. And Christina can talk about the work that she's been doing to help us in that regard. But we think we'll have probably a more reliable or tighter system as a result of the centralization.
And when should that fully be up and ready to go? I know that we voted on it last August to be able to fund it this year. Do we know when we're going to have everything in finance?
My target is to have it done by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, another recommendation was that additional communication related to the collection of revenue occur between Treasury, where the funds are collected, and with the parking fund manager. Updates to the King of Freight billings, again, we just talked about that, is that we're sending out the bills instead of expecting them to send back what they utilized to us. We're going to update the city's public-facing parking fund, the parkwichita.gov website, more frequently to reflect changes as they occur. And we're going to implement a uniform parking fund management policy. This is an internal policy dictating how rates and rate increases will be managed routinely and routinely changed. The policy should also identify parking assets and what expenditures are allowed to be charged to those assets. Any questions so far? Okay. So in summary, based on the discussions with staff and throughout the review, it was evident that staff were aware of the issues. They were already actually working on some of the issues to remediate those. And then internal audit, the recommendations made by our office have been accepted and are in process as much as they can be. There are about 4 that they're still deciding how to implement that. Questions?
Christina?
Yes.
Actually, I think it would be appropriate to ask just a little bit of a timeline. I think a lot of folks probably forgot that this council voted to pause the parking plan for further discussion regarding a review of all of this, and that's really what started this internal audit. So I'm, again, grateful that we were able to pause and then have a review of these parking structures. Since that pause, not only do we now have an internal audit, we also are moving forward with deferred maintenance. So my question to the city manager then is, can you talk about the deferred maintenance to these parking garages that are supposed to be maintained by the city? What's the status? And remind us again how we got to the position of having a sizable deferred maintenance number.
Mayor, thank you. In terms of the deferred maintenance, it had to do with, I think, limitations of revenue coming into the system and what was, in some years, a deficit position. All of those things to be addressed now under the reforms that have been reviewed and approved by the council. I don't know if Paul or Gary can help me with the timetable. Council just approved a contract for the review of all of our garages in terms of their structural integrity and to outline recommendations for improvement. Stephanie, do you? Okay.
Good morning, Council. Stephanie Knable, Downtown Parking Manager. There's a whole lot of you over there, so. Parking garage assessments, you approved a contract. Paul Gunzelman presented that a couple of weeks ago. We're hiring a firm called Martin & Martin out of Kansas City. They have already scheduled our internal building assessments with our building maintenance staff. They're starting to gather data and information. They'll be putting together 8 individual reports for us. Those are all due Halloween, Thanksgiving time this fall. That information will be compiled into a big old long list of priority projects we should look across all the garages to do. That will be incorporated into the next budget cycle, into the next revisions that we make to the CIP budget. Tentatively, those have been budgeted for about $2.5 million a year. And so this report will help us figure out what projects we do and in what order. The other thing that this report will give us is our basic maintenance schedule that we should follow for all of our garages. What should we be doing annually? What should we be doing biannually, every 5 years, that sort of thing, and help us start to create a pretty good asset management plan for each of our garages.
I'm glad that we now have a plan, and thank you for recognizing that it was partly because the parking fund was not generating any revenue, really, that we've gotten to this position. But why, my then question is more of a, can you give some explanation of why maintenance wasn't a main priority for previous councils, or the topic of maintenance of these parking structures? Why was that not, why did we not have already an asset management plan? When you create something, whether it's a house or any other building, you expect the AC at some point to go out, or you'll have to replace bulbs, et cetera. Can you explain just how the city created 8 parking structures and then didn't really have a plan of maintaining them, where now we have a sizable deferred maintenance bill?
Mayor, that's it's a great question, and it goes beyond parking. We've, for a significant number of years, the city has struggled, I think, with addressing the ongoing maintenance needs of our infrastructure. And we recognized that 15 years ago that we didn't have in place what I consider to be significant deferred maintenance or preventative maintenance programs in place. And so over a period of time, the council adopted maintenance plans for each of our classes of infrastructure. Started with streets, developed, that's when we came up with the decision support tool model. And we now have it for all of our classes of infrastructure, but parking is one of the last ones to be included in that. But we now have it in place for streets, for our water and sewer utility, for our public buildings. Those are some of the most significant, as well as park facilities. We're improving the decision support tool for that as well. So as we experience cyclical changes in our economy and downturns in our revenue situation, over the years, and that's probably over a 25 to 30 year period, council during the downtimes deferred maintenance in order to be able to maintain operating budget, maintain operations. And that's something that's, I'd say over the last 15 years, we've tried to resist. We have not sacrificed on our capital needs in order to balance the operating budget. Instead, what we've done is made cuts, significant cuts in the operating budget to be able to maintain our infrastructure. So it's a long answer to a short question, but it was symptomatic, and I think it was a policy decision made by councils and by staff over the 25, 30 year period in response to economic downturns that we had. But I do believe that not just this council, but the last few councils are on record not to get back into that habit. And so our capital improvement program reflects our maintenance needs. And if you remember early budget discussions this year, the CIP is slanted towards maintenance programs more than construction of new infrastructure.
And then I know that because July 1st is right around the corner and people are already talking about this, can you talk about how downtown paid parking will help offset what has become some of the greatest needs, which is clean and safe parking garages and clean and safe surface lots and clean and safe downtown, so people will want to come down here?
That's a great transition to Stephanie's presentation. I'll let Stephanie take that question and then talk about what we're doing going forward.
So in the near future, this week, the installation of new signs and new parking equipment is going to start to happen in downtown Wichita. We were out yesterday afternoon marking locations on the sidewalk along Douglas Street, along Market Street, and St. Francis. We're initially installing about 25 pay stations along those pathways. The removal will happen today and installation over like I said, the next several days, dodging some rainstorms. Hopefully it's all done by the end of the week. When those installations are all done, we're not going to cover the signs. We're not going to bag the parking meters. We want people to start to see the signs and see the parking meters, to get used to them and touch them and start to get a feel for what the rest of the installation is going to look like. Then starting July 1, those pay stations will be turned on, and we'll start accepting money, and people can start paying to park along those several streets that we have in downtown Wichita. Car Park has been contracted to provide traffic enforcement. However, they fully understand that Wichita is starting on ground zero. There is lots of education, there's lots of customer service, there's lots of teaching that's going to be happen out there as people get used to it and as the system grows. Lots of informing. A website's been created, parkwichita.com. That's going to start to have some videos on there for people to go watch the videos, get the how-to, both the corporate ones from the parking equipment and from the app people. But I think I've heard them talk about going and doing man-on-the-street type interviews and giving it a more personal touch also. So that's what happens this next week, working toward a July 1 start date. The next phase, phase 2, I don't have any firm dates I'm comfortable sharing right now, but just know that phase 2 is going to focus a lot on our surface lots throughout downtown. Not the ones in Old Town. We've got some other lots too that we'll be adding equipment to, starting an education process there that's a little different for the folks on our parkwichita.com site. So that's kind of a short-term vision. I don't have a feel for how long it's going to take, but the website is our go-to website for all things information and updates and how-tos and anything else we can think of, we will put out there on parkwichita.com. The end result of all of this will be money collected, revenue collected, put in a specific parking fund. It'll be tracked not only by asset, and by asset I mean each garage, each surface lot. It'll be by the type of parker that's there too. Do we have monthly parkers? We have daily parkers, you know, all sorts of different, we'll have ticket revenue that we'll start collecting at some point from municipal court also. And then each of those assets, we've got divided into the different parts of downtown. How much revenue are we collecting near the arena or near Water Walk, or hopefully someday Old Town we can include in there too. All of that parking revenue will be collected, and then we'll figure out how to spend it. We've got ongoing expenses for each garage that would surprise people, and when we get those budget lines all put together, maybe another workshop could be in order to explain what that looks like. That website will be updated as we get the parking accounting system going, as we get the revenue system going also. So.
I appreciate that there's going to be greater transparency and also information that people will be able to track. I think that that's one of the things that was revealed in the last year and a half, a lot of information that was just not collected, or bills that were just not being even really collected by staff of the people who owed us money. So I want to see greater transparency, and I hope that that website will be very robust. I know that the media here have asked multiple questions regarding the implementation starting July 1, and so that is the website that you want, and you'll be able to have information that may also change, but there's fixed information regarding rates, hours, the first base of locations, but anything else that may be fluid, you'll be able to update on the website.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, thank you. Let's see, if I was told there was going to be, we have a promotion we want to talk about today. Is it up here? No, okay. We can, Tyler, my backup is going to help on this. So, I'm going to do this. So we've been able to put together a promotion to help celebrate the beginning of downtown parking. We're going to run a promotion between July 1 and August 1. And the focus is all about getting people to download the parking apps to make it easier for them to use and to reward them. And so basically, it's on Tyler's computer any moment now. We are going to do a buy one, get one. That means you'll be able to buy an hour of parking and get an hour of parking for free. Of course, like I said, just these first 30 days and the parking meters that we're installing here this next week. Tyler's got these ready to be mailed out in postcards to the same mailing addresses that received the first one a couple of weeks ago. It generated a lot of conversation through the community. So hopefully this will help with that to make people aware in another way of this starting up.
What addresses did you mail those to? I talked to a business owner just south of Douglas, and they hadn't received anything.
Yeah, it was supposed to go out to every business and resident between Kellogg and Central and Washington and Seneca. So if you could let me know what those were, and so we can find out why they didn't get to those places.
Okay.
But they're supposed to hit every business and resident.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I heard from several, so I know many people got them. I have a question. How will this rollout be different from the C2 experience? Because I think we're going to have to do some damage control for how some people's experience went with that. So I really appreciate the videos. Will we actually have like bodies outside like trying to help people, or?
So a couple of things are going to be different. First, a majority of the patrons that go to C2 are now used to looking at an app and understanding that. So that's a huge hurdle to overcome. We know enough ahead of time that we'll be able to spend one-on-one time with that marketing group and get their websites updated and information shared through that mechanism too. And again, our car park people will be out there to help them understand, teach them, educate them how to do it, and the videos, of course, too.
Okay.
Okay, I already have some technical issues that I'm going to speak on behalf of community. You're already asking people to do this buy one, get one, and I don't see it on the website.
Yeah, they haven't mailed it out yet.
We're getting ready to roll this out. This is coming soon. We haven't put it on the website yet, but we haven't sent these out. But as soon as we're ready, have everything finalized, we will be putting this on the website. So we're just giving you an early look.
Can you give us a date? Because then when media shares this story and they might use this video, the misconception will be, well, it's already.
Yeah, no, it's coming, like, hopefully by the end of the day today. If not, it'll be done by tomorrow.
But it'll go in effect July 1.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
The information will be out there by the end of the day. The program goes into effect between July 1 and August 1st.
And
I just have one logistical question. Let's say someone downloads the app on June 29th. Will they still get the BOGO, or do they have to wait till July 1st?
Have to wait till July
Okay.
1.
Sounds good.
The magic of computers, you can be very specific now. Okay.
Mayor, that's all we have.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation regarding parking and the budget. That is it for workshop items, and we will now adjourn. Thank you.